Hello! What's going on, guys? My name is Thomas and I am the person behind T. Ozzy's Trains. I'm excited to be on video for the very first time. I'm a little nervous, I gotta say. It's a little weird talking to myself and talking to the camera and kind of spitting free ball here, but we'll see how this goes. If it goes well, I'll keep doing it. If it doesn't go well, we'll probably stop. I don't know. Whatever I feel like. It's my YouTube channel. This is my train layout. I'm gonna do whatever I want. That's what you're supposed to do. So, anyway, to the video at hand, I wanted to kind of talk about my layout. So this is the Garibaldi Shortline, and I've been working on this layout for the past almost 3 years. And I'm very excited to actually talk about it and kind of go through the history of why I built this and how it got built and all that other fun stuff. So, if you guys want to sit back, relax, and listen to the story about how the Garibaldi Shortline was made, stay tuned. It's coming right up on T. Ozzy's Trains. So before we go into the history of the Garibaldi Shortline, first we have to talk about this engine. This is my Lionel Southern Pacific Daylight GS4 number 4454. This engine's really special to me because this was the first engine I bought when going back into the hobby. And this is kind of the whole reason why I have a layout. See, I was using this Atlas track and a Kato power pack to power this engine and run it around. I didn't really have a whole layout at the time, so I was just running this Atlas track on carpet. I got a lot of flack for running the carpet track. So, what better idea than to build a layout? I decided to start building a layout from just Dollar Tree materials. It sounds crazy, but Dollar Tree was the closest hobby-esque store I had and the cheapest option, so I decided to go for it. I was using poster boards and foam boards to make a base, and then I used cork that I had bought from Hobby Lobby after I'd driven a long way to go there, and then I painted the cork, laid the track, made sure everything was good, and I kept building from there. I used small wood kits from the Dollar Tree that I had accumulated over time to make structures like the station, and I had used Brillo pads as the grass. I thought that worked out really well. So, with all the Brillo pads, I ended up buying out basically all of Dollar Tree's supply, and I just had to keep waiting to get more and more every time they reordered. So, I decided to dub the layout the Brillo Branchline. As you can see here, it was kind of a piece of work, and it's definitely showing that it was a Dollar Tree layout. I had used foam dice to create the mountain, and I carved it with a foam carver and a knife, and I had spackled it with Dollar Tree spackle to make it all smooth, and then I painted over it in 2 different shades of gray, kind of have a gradient from top to bottom. Overall, I think this layout worked kind of well. It was modular. As you can see, the 2 halves, they split apart with the hinges in the center. So that layout is kind of a relic of the money-saving time that I was in. However, I was happy to run trains on it, and I was really ecstatic to have a layout. So naturally, after I completed the Brillo Branchline, it came up to be a little bit of an issue. The Lupa track and overall just the construction of the layout started to become an issue in many spots. It was just hard because of the materials. They were so cheap, and the poster board that I had used as a base, they started to kind of fold in on themselves because of the glue and heat and expansion and all that kind of stuff. So I ended up deciding I was going to send it. I was just going to get a plywood board or some kind of wood board and have it cut to the same dimensions so I could basically just use everything similar to the layout because I really liked the size of it. The size was working well for me, and so I went to Lowe's and I went and had the baseboard cut. I have all the extra wood still with me from the layout, from when it was cut for the first time, and So I had that cut, and it's to the exact same specifications as the Brillo Branchline. So I could basically just overlap it and put it on. While I was at Lowe's, I figured I'd better go look at some foam board that I could use as a layer, because most of the layouts that I have seen, they use the foam board as a layer, and it's a good base layer to attach stuff to. Then you're not right on the wood, and you get some of the sound deadening, and so that was something I did. I ended up buying a bunch of those boards. So after that, I ended up painting this, getting all the hinges in place for the connection points, and I ended up laying the track using the exact same cork board that I had used for the Brillo Branchline. I just cut that up from the layout, and I put it all together and made sure the track worked, and voila, it worked. I painted the base brown for ground cover, and I had done nothing else at that point in time. I worked on the hinges, I made sure everything worked, so that ended up being really good. Then I started adding some of the details from the Brillo Branchline that I didn't like. I liked the mountain, but I figured that mountain was getting to a point where it was too small. I want trains to kind of disappear behind the mountain, so I added a layer of the foam dice, exactly how I made the original one. I basically just multiplied it by ×2. So I added a layer of dice, added a pink foam piece that I had lying around that I had cut from the baseboard, because I have a bunch of these lying around. I still have a few of these, but I don't want to get rid of them because they're expensive, and yeah, I don't want to get rid of them. So I figured out how to do that. I glued the original mountain to the top, and that was that. The mountain was bigger. I had also started to work on different buildings I had wanted on the layout. So my plan was, instead of have a station here, I decided to do an engine shed, just to have engines that I could put in. And I liked that idea so much that it ended up evolving into what it is right now. So I built a couple variations of this shed, but it ended up spiraling into a whole big thing. So I was really happy that it ended up doing that. In the progression of the layout, I had painted the base of the mountain, I had ground covered the mountain, spackled it, exact same process that it did to the first one. The only thing different that I did was I did the ground cover on this mountain. I didn't do the ground cover on the last one, but I'm really happy I did it on here. I ripped up all of the Brillo pieces that I had cut, since I had bought some of this, not Woodland Scenics, but blended tuft. It's from Hobby Lobby. These two types of blended tuft. They worked really well. They're cheap. They come in these big things. So I had tufted the whole layout. Sorry, this is my cart for all my train stuff. But I had tufted that whole mountain, and I was going to tuft the whole layout, which was a big process. I also started in that time working on these trees. So these are like wire pipe cleaner trees, as I believe they would call them. This is from the Dollar Tree. I like these specifically. These were white when I bought them. I had spray painted them. I have the spray paint back down there. What color is it? Let me look. Rust-Oleum Satin Hunt Club Green. There you go. And that ended up working really well. These trees are really convincing, and for what they are, they do a good job of just your, evergreen trees. And I just littered them throughout the layout. Since I was at the Dollar Tree, I was kind of working with the winter season of these, so I purchased, similarly how I bought out the Dollar Tree in Brillo pads, I had bought out the Dollar Tree in these, and unfortunately, these never came back, so I had to work with what I had for a while. Anyway, I had done that, and then I started to figure, if I want to move the layout at any point in time, which I was planning on moving after school was over, I would have to figure out a way to get this in a moving man and move it efficiently. So everything on the layout has to come off of it. Anything with elevation of some sort has to be able to be removed. So I had dug out a hole for where the mountain was supposed to be. That was a long process. I was using one of those graters for foam, the yellow one, with a handle, what I'm talking about. And I dug out this rough estimate hole that I had made for where the mountain was supposed to be, and I had tried to fill the hole with spackle for anywhere I cut too much, because I did my best on eyeballing how much this was, but I tried to do that, and it works out pretty well. The mountain can just lift out anytime I really have to move either that section of the layout or I just want to get work done around there. At the exact same time, I started kind of coming up with the idea of like a main street that I wanted to do, and the town of Garibaldi, which I have very fond memories of riding the Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad in, kind of came to mind. I wanted to do their shed and kind of that part of the town. So I started making building mock-ups out of the Dollar Tree wood that I had used to create the station at the Brillo Branchline. And I started building these buildings out of I was using an X-Acto knife to cut and carve windows and cut out parts of the buildings so it'd be shaped like some of the buildings in the town, and gluing them together just kind of like a kit, but I was making it myself out of this wood. So that was going really well. And while I was waiting for a lot of the glue, I kind of started to want to think about having the other half of the layout that you don't see on camera. I wanted that half to be more scenic, more forest, because that's what most of the OCSR, or Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad, goes through, is kind of foresty terrain with some of the coast, but I didn't want to do the water mainly because I was struggling with what I was going to do for water. But I did want to do this one scene from the Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad. There is a portion where the train goes through a dike right by Camp Magruder, and I'll put a picture on screen of the prototypical portion that I'm talking about, and it's really gorgeous. It feels like every time I've ridden that, it feels like you're gliding across the water on a train, and it's the coolest thing because anyone who takes pictures there can see the reflection of the train in the water, and it looks like the train's like hovering on water. It's amazing. It's a great spot to rail fan at, and it's a great spot to ride the train to because it's just so cool. So I was like, I want to do that scene in the corner. I had been dreaming of making a layout with that incorporated in it, and I'm really happy I tried by hand at it. I started trying to work with a glue, so I had found this blue colored glue that was for slime at the Dollar Tree, and I was trying to do my best to layer it up, and I'll show pictures of what happened. It was a really convincing color. It was very blue, very, very, very blue, but I ended up just not being able to do it. It would not stick any depth at all. The best I got was maybe like a 1/16 of an inch, but any bigger than that, it would not harden. No matter what I tried. I put it in heat, I put it in cold, I tried my best to use a hairdryer on it to heat it. Not gonna happen. So I had been trying to plan on what I was doing there, but at that point in time I started digging it out because I knew I wanted to do that, and I knew at some point I was going to do that, so I dug it out. The next thing I started to work on was I bought a bunch of kitty litter for ballast. I decided I was going to send it, unlike the last layout, where I knew I wanted to rip up the track and keep the track for something better, and I didn't want to go for that whole realistic look because I knew the ballast would come off at some point and get all over the carpet, and it was really annoying. I didn't really want to work with ballast, but I decided for the realism part, I wanted to do a ballast, and this was the best thing I came up with. I ended up going to the Dollar Tree and grabbing kitty litter. I know some people have controversial opinions about kitty litter for ballast, but this ended up working really well. I ended up using a base of tacky glue that I had gotten from the Dollar Tree, and I used a water and a white glue mix to make sure it was all secure. I used an eyedropper, dropped all of this, and it worked really well. It's not a very good scale. It really looks kind of like boulders, but I'm happy with how it looks. It just is convincing enough to where it's like, okay, that's ballast, I got the idea of it, but it's not too much towards like, oh, it's like really bad, it's out of scale. So I'm happy I ended up working with that. I'm just going through chronological order through the pictures that I have. So at this point in time, I had made the shed, which is what it looks like right now. I used hinges from Dollar Tree treasure boxes. I had taken those hinges off and made these doors. And that was something that I was really proud of. I was like, oh man, I got good ideas for this. So I made the doors and the hinges, and then I had started to do the full ground cover on this layout. Same ground cover as the mountain, and I filled the scenic half of the layout with that. What else did I do from here? This is when I started building the second mountain. So the one thing I did like from the Brillo Branchline was that it was kind of a corridor that the train goes through, and I wanted to have that effect. So I decided I was going to hollow out a section in the corner over on the other side of the layout for another little mountain, because I had a bunch of them lying around. I decided I'm going to chop them up, put them together, do the exact same thing I did with large mountain, ground cover it, paint it, and stick some trees on it. And it works. It's there. It can be removed just exactly like the big mountain, but it works really well. It's a great little way to get a little alley through there, and yeah, I'm really happy with it. So the next thing that I did, which was a big project for me, was lighting. So as I was working on putting together the town, I glued in the roadbed, and I found some fairy lights at Dollar Tree. And I figured maybe I could use these fairy lights to put lights in each of the buildings. So I learned how to solder, and I learned how to solder a battery pack into a USB so I could plug the USB into a wall outlet. And so the battery, I don't have to replace batteries when I really turn on the layout for the lights. And I had ripped up all of the road, decided to drill holes, get sidewalks made at the same time, and drill holes into each of the spots where the light was going to go into the building with a pin vise. And I'd stuck the fairy lights in through the bottom, and I ended up coming up with this good effect that goes through the town. And I, for the second time, glued down the road, and now I have this great lighting in the layout. So I'll show a clip. It shows really way better in the dark and at nighttime, and it's fantastic. It's a great effect. It does its job, and I'm really proud of it. And as you can see through these pictures, I was just ballasting, doing ground cover, figuring out what I want the layout to look like, and then I got basically the scenic half of the layout done before I started fully working on painting the buildings and getting this half of the layout done, because this was more the nerve-wracking side with all the wires and the electrics in it. So I ended up doing that as well. And I painted all the buildings, and I cut more buildings, and yeah, so there's more lighting pictures. I have more pictures of it being lit with painted, and I think it looks great. So here's the point where I got a little stuck. I had to figure out what I was going to do with the point over here, because at the time I didn't have anything to switch it. I just had that big chunky switch from the Atlas Track Tack, this guy. And I wanted to get rid of that because that's not really prototypical, and it was going to get in the way of how close the layout was to the fascia and the side, and I wanted to get rid of that. So I ended up buying a switch from Caboose Industries, and that I had to jimmy it in there to cut a little stuff. And it worked out really well. I like having that switch and being able to throw it myself. I don't need an electric switch at this point in time, but because it's just one switch, it's right here. But it works really well. I'm really happy with it. The next thing that I ended up doing was working with epoxy. So I ended up going on Amazon and buying resin, and I learned resin was probably the best way to do the water portion of the layout. So after I totally finished that half, I was like, I have to get myself doing that water in the dike. And I ended up mixing the epoxy together and pouring it, which was awful. I ended up ruining a bunch of stuff. I got all over my hands because I didn't wear gloves. I didn't know it was like a real requirement to wear gloves. I thought it was just a highly suggested kind of thing so I don't get sued. But it took me hours to get the epoxy off my hands. But we're good now. It's a live and learn situation. But I ended up getting that whole thing done. It looks great. there is room for improvement over there, so I know what I can learn if I want to use epoxy resin next time. But I'm happy with how it really happy with how it looks now. Pictures on that side of the layout are amazing. You can always see trains going by and see the reflection in the water, exactly like the effect I wanted. It's great. One of the things that I really wanted to do was get the G. So Garibaldi has this giant G up on the hill, and it's really iconic for the town. And every time you drive in from Tillamook into the Garibaldi area, you see the G. And I wanted to make sure that G was represented, so I ended up cutting and carving this G out of foam I had from the Pink's foam, and I made a really convincing G that's on the hill, and I'm really happy about it. So the final part of the layout, I was working on this, and the main thing I was having trouble with was figuring out like what I wanted to do here, because how the prototype is set up is very different from how my Garibaldi town setup is. So it's kind of like a proto-lance layout, but I have park over here. I built a small scale park, there is a park relatively close to where the train stops in Garibaldi, and I ended up putting the famous Garibaldi depot shed right over there. I built that. I could do a better job at replicating that, but I'm really happy with how it looks out now. And the smokestack, as you can see, it's probably the tallest. It is the tallest piece in the town, close to the tallest piece on the layout. It's very close to the mountain. The smokestack's really famous. It's another thing you see in Garibaldi that tells you this is Garibaldi. And right here, I really wanted to do this because this is one of the things you pass is the logging yard and kind of the myrtle wood factory, and I wanted to add a little something to that. So I collected some sticks from outside and cut them and made it look like a log stack. I know it's probably not the most scale thing, but it's good enough. I made these barbed wire fences out of a strainer from Dollar Tree. I got a strainer and cut the wire out and used toothpicks as the posts and just kind of fed it along here. There is a sign right here for the Myrtle Wood Factory that you would see if you were driving on the freeway or on 101 through Garibaldi. Another thing I did get pretty late on were these trees. I had bought more pipe cleaner trees off of Amazon. These were, I think I bought like 48 or something like that. I want to say it was like $12. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was good enough. They do the job. They're not as convincing as the other ones, being that dark color, but since these are that lighter color, it's weird. But it adds a different color to the layout, and I think it's fine. It adds a little bit more complexity to when you look at it. And I'm not looking for too realistic right now. I'm using kitty litter as ballast, so it's not really. If I really want to do something interesting and very detail heavy and prototypical, I can do that on the next layout. Another thing to discuss with the layout is I have a hatch right here. It's made out of just that same wood, and I did the exact same ground layer effect. This just hides the battery box, so I wanted it to be accessible in case something happened to it. So this is where the wires in the battery box under this portion. You don't really notice it. It's just got like an eye hook there so I can pick it up. That's the only reason you would notice it. And I also made covers for the hinges. So each of the hinges on the layout can be unlatched, so you can pull the layout apart into the two sections. And I made these covers for it just out of that same wood, that same technique with the eye hook. And they work really well. They just hide that there's a hole right there. I'm really happy about that. So I have a bunch of HO scale cars on the layout. I have figures. I have 3D printed benches that I ended up gluing onto thumbtacks. Everything that is not glued onto the layout is on thumbtacks, or it can be removed from itself. So I can just pick up one of these buildings. You can see there's thumbtacks that I've glued to the bottom. it just holds these in place for any lateral movement. If I ever want to move this again, all these come up and the layout looks really barren. I'll show a picture of that when I moved. And yeah, it looks weird, but you know, I did it. There are some cars, I just bought some of these Bolt cars at a train show. They're really plain, but I do have a couple more detailed ones. I have a Porsche 928, one of my favorite cars. I have a 250 GTO because I thought that'd be funny to put on the layout, because why is there like a $70 million car in Garibaldi? I recently acquired a semi-truck. This is a Oregon Duck semi-truck, since I am going to the University of Oregon for my grad school year. And yeah, I mean, everything on this layout I'm really happy with. I have all the figures, like similarly to the buildings, they're on thumbtacks like that, and they just go into place. They have holes where they go. I'm thinking about painting more of these up and adding them, because at least they look like they're in the layout. The last two projects that I finished on the layout, you've seen a little bit of on the channel before. The circuit going around the layout, I don't think is 100% good. If that's the one thing that I do in my next layout, is work on the circuit and the electric power in the layout. I mean, I'm going to spend a lot of time on that on my next layout that I build, because I've had major problems with the track getting connection. As you can see, the train's like on right now, but it has bad power. So let's see what's going. I can turn up the power, but yeah, it has bad track connectivity, and I didn't spend a lot of time on my track laying, or as much as I would like to have spent on my track laying. So I had to rip up a piece of the corner over there, and in doing so, I've broken the plastic sleepers under the rail, and I had to cut out and create new ones out of the Dollar Tree wood that I still have lying around. So I painted those sleepers brown to add a little bit of realism to the layout, even though I know it's not really going to make a difference, and it stands out like a sore thumb that I'm looking at it right now. But it's fine. The track runs a little bit better with that help. This corner section still needs a little bit of help. I think I might have to rip up this piece of track, and it is what it is. I think it's fine for now. It runs well enough. So yeah, I'm very much happy with this layout and the evolution of this layout. It's taken a long time, and it's taken a lot of hard work to get it to where it is. But overall, I have to say, I am very satisfied with this being my first real hearty attempt at a layout. So the Garibaldi Shortline will go down as one of my favorite layouts that I've done. So I know that was a lot of rambling, that was a long talk about the layout. I'm just really proud of this and really excited to talk about it. It's just an amazing feat to be able to build a layout, especially at my age, which I'm 22, almost 23. And having something like this, it really brings me joy to be able to be in the model railroading hobby in my own space, and to see this whole thing come to fruition, to see all my ideas come into physical form. It just makes me proud, and I really like talking about it. So with that being said, that's kind of the history of the Garibaldi Shortline. I know I left some things out probably. Well, I'm very happy with how this layout went, and I'm excited to continue running trains on it until I can go on to my next layout, which it's going to be a while before I can do that, but yeah. I'm just going to let you guys enjoy some trains running for a while, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stick around, more videos to come. I don't know if it's going to be in this format, but yeah, I'm going to run some trains. You guys have a good day.